On April 8, 1943, 27,000 feet above Caen, France, Oberleutnant Ralph Hermachon smirked, his oxygen mask barely concealing his amusement. Through the crystal-clear canopy of his FW-190A5, he watched as the ungainly silhouettes of American fighters climbed laboriously toward his formation. "The Angie armies have sent us flying milk bottles," he transmitted to his wingman, unable to suppress his laughter at the sight of the Republic P-47 Thunderbolts straining for altitude. Below them, 16 P-47Cs of the 4th Fighter Group fought against gravity, their massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines straining against their 7-ton weight. To German pilots, used to the sleek Spitfires and nimble Soviet fighters, these American machines seemed almost comical. Barrel-shaped fuselages, greenhouse canopies, wings that seemed too small for their massive bodies. What Hermachon didn't know, what none of the German pilots circling like wolves above could have imagined, was that they were witnessing the arrival of a weapon that would systematically destroy the Luftwaffe's fighter arm. Within 18 months, these flying milk bottles would evolve into terror in the skies, their 8 half-Browning machine guns becoming the most feared sound in German airspace. The Thunderbolt was about to redefine the rules of aerial warfare. On that morning, Major Donald Blayney of the 335th Fighter Squadron saw the German formation positioning for attack. A former Eagle Squadron veteran who had transferred from RAF Spitfires, Blayney knew what his men didn't. Survival in the P-47 demanded abandoning everything they thought they knew about air combat. The Thunderbolt wasn't designed to climb, turn, or outmaneuver. It was designed to survive, endure, and destroy. The Germans had built lightweight interceptors optimized for climb and turn, but the P-47 was a heavy juggernaut that redefined the sky with its raw power. Though the P-47s couldn't match the nimbleness of the Luftwaffe's Bf-109s or FW-190s in a dogfight, they made up for it with brute strength and firepower. These were machines that could take punishment like no other. The first encounters were less than favorable. American pilots and their P-47s, new to combat and untested in the skies over Europe, lost 14 Thunderbolts for only 3 confirmed kills in their first month of operations. German pilots mocked the Thunderbolt. One German officer called it meat for the slaughter, describing it as a truck that turns like a freight train. But something strange was happening in those early encounters. The P-47s that were shot down didn't fall easily. They absorbed incredible punishment that would have destroyed any other fighter. The massive radial engine shrugged off hits that would have brought a liquid-cooled engine to a halt. When P-47s finally got their guns on target, the results were catastrophic. With 3,400 rounds of ammunition and a combined rate of fire of 6,000 rounds per minute, the Thunderbolt's weapons created a zone of destruction that German pilots had never encountered before. The P-47 could maintain fire for over 30 seconds, an eternity in aerial combat, ripping through enemy fighters like a hot knife through butter. By June 26, 1943, during an encounter with German fighters over Lamazou, France, it became clear that the P-47 was a force to be reckoned with.
Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson, flying at the rear of his formation, took catastrophic damage from 16 FW-190s. His P-47's canopy shattered and shrapnel tore into his body. His engine was torn apart, the controls froze, and the aircraft shook violently. Despite being trapped in a dying aircraft, Johnson managed to level the Thunderbolt and head for England, his engine barely running and with little visibility through his oil-smeared windscreen. A lone German pilot, seeing Johnson's crippled plane, attacked. The German pilot fired round after round of cannon and machine gun ammunition, but the P-47 didn't fall. Johnson's Thunderbolt absorbed the fire and kept flying. The German pilot, perplexed, pulled alongside, staring in disbelief. Then, as though in recognition of the Thunderbolt's tenacity, he saluted and peeled away. Johnson's P-47 made it home despite having taken over 200 hits, including a cannon shell that exploded inches from his head. German pilots were stunned. The P-47 had survived damage that would have destroyed any other fighter. The transformation of the Thunderbolt from an object of ridicule to a nightmare for the Luftwaffe had begun. By July 1943, American pilots had started to exploit the P-47's true strengths: mass, power, firepower. Instead of trying to match the Germans in dogfights, they used their weight and speed to outmaneuver them in dives. With the P-47's ability to reach speeds of 550 miles per hour from 30,000 feet, the Germans had no chance of keeping up. The Thunderbolt could climb, dive, and fight with devastating effectiveness. The boom and zoom tactic, pioneered by Captain Walker Bard Mahurin, became the hallmark of American P-47 operations. The Thunderbolts would climb to 30,000 feet and then dive on unsuspecting German fighters below, unleashing streams of fire that destroyed enemy aircraft in seconds. The P-47's performance at high altitudes, especially above 25,000 feet, proved decisive. German fighters, which relied on mechanical superchargers, struggled in the thin air. In contrast, the P-47's turbocharged engine maintained peak performance, giving American pilots a significant advantage. By October 8, 1943, German aces like Hans Philipp were struggling to keep up with the Thunderbolts at high altitudes. The P-47s could dive from as high as 32,000 feet and catch German aircraft with ease. By 1944, the P-47's evolution was complete. The D-22 variant, with its improved propeller and climb rate, gave the Thunderbolt the ability to match German fighters at most altitudes. The Thunderbolts began escorting bombers deep into Germany, wreaking havoc on enemy aircraft and ground targets alike. They were feared not just for their firepower, but for their durability. German pilots soon learned that the Thunderbolt could take more punishment than any other aircraft and keep flying. In Normandy, the P-47s became a crucial part of the Allied invasion, providing air cover, destroying enemy vehicles, and demoralizing German troops. By the end of 1944, the Luftwaffe was on its last legs. Fuel shortages and a lack of experienced pilots crippled Germany's air force. The P-47, with its overwhelming firepower and unmatched durability, had shifted the balance of power in the skies. The Thunderbolt story wasn't just one of technology, it was a testament to American industrial might. Over 15,000 P-47s were built during the war, produced faster than the Germans could replace their aircraft. Each P-47 required 65,000 parts and 2,000 pounds of aluminum to assemble, and the workers who built them, many of them women, did so with precision that exceeded peacetime standards.
By war's end, the P-47 had decimated the Luftwaffe, with 3,752 German aircraft destroyed in aerial combat and another 3,315 destroyed on the ground. It had helped secure victory in both Europe and the Pacific, proving its worth in every theater of war. The Germans, who had once laughed at the flying milk bottle, came to fear the sound of the Thunderbolt's guns, a sound that haunted them until the end of the war. General Adolf Galland, the former head of the Luftwaffe, later admitted, "We made a terrible mistake in 1943. We saw this big, heavy fighter and laughed. The Americans didn't understand air combat. We were the ones who didn't understand." Galland had seen it firsthand. The P-47 wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol of America's ability to mass-produce devastatingly effective fighters, a lesson the Germans would learn too late. By the end of the war, the P-47 Thunderbolt had gone from the joke to an instrument of annihilation. Its 8 synchronized Browning machine guns rewrote the rules of aerial combat and sealed the fate of the Luftwaffe. The Thunderbolt wasn't just about firepower, it was about overwhelming American industrial might, and that was a lesson the Germans would never forget.